Good evening, everyone. It's a great honor for me to receive this recognition from Vera. I'd like to thank everyone associated with the organization for identifying me for this kind of recognition. I'm deeply disappointed that I can't be with you in person. I'm really sorry about that, and I'll look forward to other opportunities to share time and space with you face to face. I'm really delighted to be a part of a Vera celebration. There's no organization that has done more to meet the challenges created by mass incarceration than Vera. The huge changes in this country over the last 40, 50 years have created just a trail of despair and distress in many of our communities, with 2.3 million people in jails and prisons, with 6 million people on probation and parole, with millions of formerly incarcerated people now trying to recover from time in jail and prison. We need new narratives, we need new leadership, we need new thinking. And Vera has been at the forefront in facilitating the conversations necessary to create these kinds of solutions, the kind of transformation that we're desperately needed. And so I'm absolutely honored to be in this space, to encourage them and to encourage you as we stand with them in the important work that is in front of us. Today, the United States has the highest rate of incarceration in the world. We've put children in prison and sentenced them to die there. We have condemned not only individuals, but families and communities. And we've got incredibly important work to do. For me, that means getting close. It means appreciating the power of proximity. If there's anything I want to share with you, is that we've got to get closer to people in jails and prisons. We've got to get closer to formerly incarcerated folks. We've got to get decision makers and policymakers and judges closer to the underlying problems that create crime and violence and despair. One of the great challenges we have in this century is whether we can create a new narrative that's affirming and uplifting and encouraging to people who live in the margins, the tens of thousands of poor, the racially disenfranchised. All of these communities need leadership, and I'm thrilled that Vera is providing it. I'll end with this. There are times when you do work, challenging work, like Vera has done. There are times when you get close to situations like the situations I'm urging us all to get closer to, where you can get a little turned around. I was in a church in the Black Belt not too long ago giving a talk, and there was an older man in a wheelchair at this church, and he was looking at me pretty harshly all during my talk. He was a little unnerving to me, actually. And when I finished, people came up. They were very grateful. They were very thankful for my remarks, but this man kept sitting there and he kept staring at me. And finally, when everybody else left, he had a little boy with him, and he asked this boy to wheel him up to me, and he came up to me. And the man said to me in a very stern voice, he confronted me almost, and he said to me, he said, "Do you know what you're doing?" And I didn't quite know how to respond, and he asked me again, he said, "Do you know what you're doing?" And I just stood back, I didn't know what to say, and then he put his hand up and he said, "I'll tell you what you're doing." He said, "You're beating the drum for justice." And I looked at him and I was so moved. And then he said it again. He said, "You're beating the drum for justice." And then he said, "You keep beating the drum for justice." And I never will forget, he called me to him. He almost pulled me into his chair and he said, "Look, look." He said, "You see this scar?" He said, "I got that scar in 1963 when I was trying to register people to vote in Greene County, Alabama." And then he turned his head. He said, "You see this scar? I got that scar in Philadelphia, Mississippi in 1964. And then he lowered his head. He said, "You see this dark spot on the base of my neck?" He said, "I got that beating when I was in Birmingham in 1965. And then he looked at me and he said, "Some people think that they see cuts and bruises and scars on my head." And he said, "These aren't cuts and bruises and scars." He looked at me. He said, "These aren't marks of pain and anguish. These aren't cuts and bruises and scars." He said, "These are my medals of honor." And it's that kind of recognition that I feel tonight. Because you are saying to stay close, keep fighting, do the important work that must be done. And for me, that's the kind of medal of honor that is encouraging, inspiring, and affirming. I thank all of you for this incredible opportunity, for this incredible recognition, and I wish all of you the best and another fantastic year for all those associated with Vera. Thanks very much. Good night.